Welcome to June, everybody. Summer break is here, and everyone is eager to get in their vacation time. Regardless how you spend majority of it, summer is a great time for games. Whether you're the type to look to the big releases or show some love to that backlog that I'm sure you already have, today's video is another glance at some games that I've been playing lately that I want to take some time to talk about. Not to review, just highlighting some strong contenders that I think more people should try out. To start, what we have is not only a game, but a collection of them, and what's probably one of the cleanest presentations I've seen. Atari 50th is a game that came out a couple of years ago and made the rounds for being the most convenient way to play the entirety of Atari's first-party offerings. When I saw this a couple years back, I assumed it was going to be the high notes that everyone knows. Your centipedes, your missile commands, your breakouts. But little did I know this collection also includes the 2600, the 5200, and even the Lynx and Jaguar. Having those later systems included is really insane for me to think about, because when I think of all the retro game stalls and vendors I've seen when I go to conventions and such, I can't recall a single time I've seen either of those out in the wild. So having everything in one place is such a nice thing to have. For some extra flair, you can do things like play different variations of games if you really feel like getting into the nitty-gritty of Atari by enabling things like black and white screens, adjusting the controls, and so forth to your liking. And hey, even if playing the games themselves really isn't your cup of tea, because, let's face it, there's a reason a lot of these games aren't talked about too often in modern discussions. There's a substantial documentary mode in the game itself where you can examine things like promotional materials for back in the day, and watch interviews from various key figures related to the company. I very much recommend this to anyone who has even the slightest interest in the Atari branding as a whole.
As an intelligent consumer, I wanted to compare Atari Asteroids with other companies' asteroids. But other companies don't make asteroids. I wanted to compare Atari Missile Command with other companies' missile commands. But other companies don't make that either. Finally, I wanted to compare the new Atari Warlords. Unfortunately, other companies don't make it. When it comes to the video games the world wants most, nobody compares to Atari.
Next up is Final Fantasy VI. If you've been following this channel for a little bit, you've probably noticed I've been marathoning the classic Final Fantasy games, and 6 just so happens to be one of my favorites in the series. Unlike some other entries where you have dedicated classes or jobs that characters can freely swap between, 6 is one of those games where the characters themselves serve as those classes instead. Each one has their own unique toolkit to play with to keep things fresh, and for a majority of the story, the pacing is so quick your characters are constantly being swapped out, up until the late game. Not only that, you're not even required to get most of the characters in order to finish the game either, with the game's final act almost allowing you to run straight into the last dungeon immediately. It's not recommended, and you'd miss a ton of optional dungeons if you do, but that goes to show the level of freedom you're allowed to have with this one. I'm also glad the Pixel Remastered version exists in particular, because for those of you who are unaware, Final Fantasy VI's history of being brought to other consoles has been very spotty compared to earlier titles in the franchise. There was the Game Boy Advance version, which came out in 2007, 3 years after the DS hit the market in America, and it added a couple of bosses and summons among other things, but as far as what you could grab in the modern day on modern machines, your options for a very long time were either finding a SNES or GBA cartridge somewhere, or getting the mobile port, which just didn't do the art style any favors. I mean, other games in the series have imported or given 3D remakes on occasion, but I'm surprised the only way to get 6, until recently, was if you had thought to snag it on Virtual Console through the Wii, Wii U, or 3DS. I suppose there's also the fact it's on the SNES Mini if you have one of those lying around, but I'll digress. The Pixel Remastered version comes with bells and whistles like you've seen with the other 5 games up to this point. Prettier pixel art, EXP, money and skill point multipliers, and music that's been redone and sounds so nice if you already have an affinity for any of these tracks, as well as the ability to turn off random encounters if you're so inclined, which, let's face it, we all use it at least once or twice when we're tired. And for those of you listening that aren't big RPG fans, don't worry, because my tastes aren't limited. I've been revisiting some of the older Call of Duty games I played when I was in my transformative years, and I got to Modern Warfare 3, and I feel so weirdly nostalgic for this one. Christmas 2011, we got an Xbox 360 that came with Halo Reach and Fable 3 in the box. I myself had gotten Sonic Generations, and my older brother was given Modern Warfare 3, and I think this one holds up really well for me beyond the childhood wonder factor, since the game was right around the time it came from becoming a bit more optimized across all versions. You didn't have to deal with wonky UI elements as much, and the visuals look a lot less jarring than you'd think for something being 16 years old. And believe you me, with my experience with Call of Duty, I had Black Ops 1 on the Wii, so let that simmer in. T-posing Nikolai still burns into my brain. The campaign is a neat thing to revisit to the point I never realized how much I'd take for granted on what makes a game good. Even from simply playing Spec Ops with Zach, there's always something distinct about each mission that it doesn't feel like I'm doing the same task repeatedly. I think perhaps a sentiment that formed over the 2010s, and likely still is now, that if you have guys who play Call of Duty multiplayer, they're probably not playing the other parts of the game, yet will scratch their heads and wonder why things feel kind of frustrating and monotonous. And I say that as someone who may have fallen into that loop myself at one point. Sure, I played other games, but Call of Duty is Call of Duty. Especially back then, if you played one, you feel like you played all of them despite the little differences in between. Like, if there comes a day when we have a Master Chief styled bundle of all these games just kind of put together, or at least like the high points people look on fondly, I'd pick it. Next up, I've dug into the trenches of my backlog and pulled out Vivid Loop. Vivid Loop? Vivid Loop? I'm unsure. The game is a surreal puzzle platformer that reminds me of a lot of Flash games you'd see in the early 2000s across the internet. Levels are 3D environments that give you the simple task of making each square a specific color. Sometimes you only have to step on each tile once, other times you have to step on them multiple times. As you fill up more of the board, enemies will descend onto the stage, and you'll have to balance avoiding them while paying attention to the tiles around you to ensure you don't fall off or land on a bad space. You aren't meant to do this under a strict time limit unless you want a high score rank, but you are rewarded for being quick. What I like about the levels in particular is that as you get close to completing a stage, once you get down to a certain percentage of the map remaining, you're given a bonus round where if you manage to get the remaining tiles, you're in for a nice score. The challenge of this bonus round comes with the cost of if you step on a tile you've already hit, your power meter that you have off to the side depletes. If the meter runs out, you still win the stage, but you're ushered on to the next one, letting you know that you could do better and put your tiles a bit closer together so you can get that full score the next time around. There's different characters with their own quirks, and a bestiary you can make use of to practice how to navigate the various enemies in the game, and overall, it's a solid package. If you're looking for something random to kill a weekend with, give this a try. Lastly, for today's showcase, I didn't think I'd be here already, but I actually finished Final Fantasy VI in time for this video. Naturally, my marathon is going to keep going strong. Final Fantasy VII is one of those games I've always been told is great, and I know that's for a good reason. However, it's a game I feel like you have to be in the right mood in order to enjoy. I tried playing this a couple years ago and didn't get particularly far due to how much of a thorough time commitment it is in order to see and do everything. Fortunately, now that I'm giving it another go, the current version of Modern Machines all have some minor tweaks akin to the Pixel remasters. Not the remixed music or bestiary, but the ability to speed up the game and turn off random encounters definitely sweeten the deal a bit. If you're in a similar boat as me and had the game praised to the moon and back, and most of your life getting the experience through cultural osmosis, and then turned around and played a bunch of fanservice-y Final Fantasy games, if not for that cultural or historical context of the game, it doesn't feel like you're doing more than going through the motions. Now, I can acknowledge my experience that led to these feelings aren't what most people think, but I feel like I'm caught in a limbo of sorts whenever I'm playing. There's so much of value to appreciate in the game that I'm hoping my mindset changes the further in I get. Like, to bring this to a gameplay-focused discussion, getting through Midgar at the beginning is a very streamlined experience that takes about 2 to 3 hours to get through. It's a neat thing to see for the first time, but there's really not a way to mix it up if you've already experienced it before. Once you're done with that, as soon as you're in the world map, you're then railroaded into learning how to catch chocobos in order to cross a small path without a giant monster taking you out, which the whole segment is mandatory in order to progress the game. On one hand, I think it's smart that you have to do this immediately, so that you know going forward it's there. But if you're going to take the time and make me do that, why is it not something that I get the impression is actually going to be important that I'm going to be doing a bunch? And again, I want to reiterate, I know I'm still early on, so maybe this is going to change later, but I feel weird playing a game and not feeling as though I'm actually playing it until I'm already several hours in. I could go on and begin to mention how I wish there was some quality of life tweaks here or there, but I'll withhold those thoughts until I've, finished the game, or at least gotten close enough. But for those of you listening who don't really know what this game is or how it plays, I'll explain very briefly. The game takes the active battle system from Final Fantasy VI and tweaks it so now instead of 4 party members, you only have 3. This can cause you to think on your feet, as unlike FF6, even if every character has their own gimmicks, your party isn't constantly getting shuffled. This allows you to spend more time with your characters and build them up how you want with different spells and abilities through the in-game materia system. Even when somebody does eventually leave for story reasons, how you've chosen to optimize the rest of the cast can make the next challenge either a cakewalk or a struggle. I know for anyone who's played the game, this might come off as a very surface-level observation, but when that's my takeaway after like 6 to 7 hours of playing, I feel it's a little deserved. If one day I come out of this game thinking I didn't do it justice in this video, I'll go back and touch up on it with its own dedicated one, because I want to give this game its praises. Just right now, this is where I'm at. But that's all for this season. Summer's coming in hot, and we don't have much time before some of the big releases drop. I hope you found something I showed off today enticing, and hey, let me know in the comments below if you did. If you're still here, thank you as always for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, everybody,